Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Welcome to a very, very, very special episode of Boss Talks. Now, before we even get started, there is a fee. I'm telling you right now, it is a huge fee. It's not monetary though. What we need you to do is when you find value in this, we need you to share it. We need you to get the word out because specifically over the next couple of months, we're going to be dropping even more important, even more special episodes than we've been dropping up until now. Like predominantly, we've been mindset. We've been sharing about how to become more successful in your life, your relationships with your family, your friends, your money, your wallet, all that sort of stuff. But there comes a time where we need to share the next level. And there is a next level. So if this is your first podcast that you've ever heard us, my name's Joel Lord, and this is my amazing business partner and host, Christine Drummond. And I'm looking forward to today because I love firing people up. And I've off air over the last couple of days fired Christine up and she's ready to go. But before we start about this, let me just share with you our plans for the next couple of weeks. Maybe not in a row, but we're certainly going to be dropping them. And it's about legacy. The next level is legacy. Like, what are we actually doing with our planet, with our lives, with our businesses? Like, what is it all for? Because no matter who you are, your human life is finite. You've really been sentenced to death the day you're born. And that's not something you should be morbid about. That's something that you need to be excited about because far out, you get the opportunity to live on this planet and see the good, the bad, the ugly, and you get to decide how you spend every day between the day you're born and the day you die. How cool is that? So for Christine and I, we want to leave a legacy. And I know if you're listening to this, you do too. Now, before I pass it over to Christine and actually tell you what this is about, because I know you're getting excited and you're going, Joel, just tell me what it's about. Let me just share with you a quick overview of what levels of consciousness mean. Now, look, people can argue till they're pink in the face or black in the face, whatever you want to be, about different ways to explain the same thing. But a really great way that I've found to understand what's going through people's minds and really understand their behaviors is through a thing called Valley's levels or spiral dynamics. And this is something that was uncovered by Don Beck and has been expanded upon by many people. Now, just a quick run through is like, basically as you get older and you go through experiences, like things change in your mind. Like think of it like your computer has different software on it. And when you upgrade the software or side grade or downgrade the software, the perspective and the abilities of the human or the computer change. So what do I mean by this? Well, there's a values level 3 and like there's ones before that. And look, these aren't ranked. 3 isn't worse than 5. 5 isn't like better than 4. It's just the computer program. It's just like, some people use colors. Like, so red is the 3 and that's God power. That's where, you see predominantly a lot of younger male teenagers or something like that, where they think that the shit doesn't stink. The rules don't apply to them. They know everything. And, usually what happens is they realize one day they get a wake up call that they're not the biggest dog in the pen. There's someone bigger than them. And maybe they're not invincible. Maybe the rules do apply to them, or maybe they get in trouble. They get in trouble. They get a scare from the police or, and that moves them into the blue or the 4, which is about the rules, like follow the rule book. And that's what a lot of people like. Think the system, think church, think the police force, think the armed services, and it goes on. It's not limited to those at all. But it's really, hey, what does the rule book say? Like, we need to follow that. Like, not a lot of free thinking in there. And then one day they realize, and they think that, like, a lot of them predominantly believe that if they work really hard and sacrifice now, that later they'll get the masterpiece life. And, I can attest that I've been there myself. Next level is the entrepreneur, the 5, the orange, and that's where it's about making money, making profit, and I'm not going to say at all costs. You know, there's plenty of people in there that do it the right way, but you're more focused on profit, and you know you can tend to not pay attention to the planet as much, and you know worry about the maybe the side effects that come that may not be always positive when you're making the money. It's about, you know, building the nest egg and getting things going for your life, you know. Then when you make the money, a lot of people transition into the green or the 6, and that's where it becomes about, you know, community more than just yourself. And you start thinking, wow, all that profit that we're making is really not doing that well for the planet. Or maybe we need to, they find a cause that is crazy and they want to, you know, they're thinking, holy crap, if the world keeps going the way it is, there's going to be a disaster and, you know, we're going to lose all this stuff. So they start looking at the planet and human society as a group and they want to help. And then they realize that takes a lot of money. And sometimes they go back to making money so they can solve the problem, or they move up to the 7. And there's very few 7s out there. And when we're talking about the consciousness level raising on the planet, hopefully that means that there's a lot more people moving past the 6, and which isn't better or worse than anything else there. We need all of them. Think about it. If there was an argument or you wanted to be defended, wouldn't you want Navy SEALs to be 3s that can think that they're tough and that they can do whatever they want? You want them there to protect you. You don't want a whole heap of people going and hugging trees to try to save you, do you? Like, hopefully the war's not there, but if that happened, I'm sure that made sense. If not, please search it on Google. Have a great read. It's very in depth. Or listen to Don Beck's book, or there's other books out there on it, and it's tremendous. So when we talk legacy, we're talking about what are we leaving for the next generation? What are we leaving to the world? You know, you might not have anyone to pass your legacy on to, like in your family, but maybe you got to think about what are you leaving for the world, you know? So like, think of Elon Musk. He's hopefully leaving amazing technology for powering us rather than using fossil fuels. Maybe he's doing that. Maybe he's giving us space travel. Who knows what he's going to give us? You know, like, think about all these things that have happened that are great for the world. And you got guys like that and women like that thinking like that. So here's the segue. Christine, you're one of those people that are thinking like that. And one of the things for the first part of our legacy series that I really want to, you know, introduce you and get you to talk about today, because like I know a little bit, but you've gone deep. You've gone down the rabbit hole. I really want you to explain to the listeners about what we're talking about today and what today's topic is. So take it away.
Thanks, Joel. And I love the way that you introed with those levels of consciousness, because we don't often think like that. We don't often feel or think, how are we moving through those different levels? And I thought that you introduced those beautifully. So for me today, I don't know what really to call this topic, but, you know, I'm going to be talking about soil. And before you switch off thinking, oh my gosh, why is Christine talking about soil? Why is she talking about regenerative farming? Guys, this matters. This is what's going to save the human race. Everything that matters to us on this planet converges or meets and is based around our food system, the way that it's grown, the way that it's produced, the way that it's transported, the way that it's watered, the way that it's rocking up on our shelves, the way that it's marketed to us. And I'm going to share some pretty crazy statistics today, which are going to get you thinking. That's what this podcast is about. We want you to start thinking differently about the apple that's rocking up in your house. And I'll just see if I can find it here. But no one thinks about everything that went into getting that apple to your fridge. You know, and I can't find the page that I want right now, but I want to talk about, you know, what is going on in the world right now. And this incredible book that I've read called Food Fix, one of my favorite doctors on the planet, Dr. Hyman, created this amazing book. If you haven't read it, I really highly recommend you get your hands on it. But what's happening is that the policies and the businesses that are driving our current system are not supporting the globe. They're not supporting the human race in the way that they could be. And what we're seeing is a lot of damage in regards to our climate, in regards to global warming, in regards to dis-ease and illness, across the globe. So, if we want to start changing some of these statistics, we're going to have to start reimagining the food system from the field to the fork and beyond. And what Dr. Hyman talks about is identifying, a big lever to pull and improve global health and create economic abundance, reduce the social injustice and mental illness, and restore the environment health and reverse climate change. We need to look at the entire food system in order to do that. And that's what I'm going to share a little bit about with you today. But I want to share this number with you. And the number is $95 trillion. $95 trillion. And I'm just talking in the US alone. $95 trillion is what the estimate burden will be put on the American economy in regards to chronic disease over the next 35 years alone. 95 trillion. Now, if we just took a portion of that and reinvested it, we could use it towards providing free education for people. We could provide free healthcare. We could eradicate poverty. We could end food insecurity and hunger. We could end unemployment, rebuild infrastructure, change the transportation systems, shift to renewable energy, draw down carbon emissions and reverse climate change. We could transform the whole agricultural system that is damaging the planet right now. So most of the disease that's going to be affected is caused by our industrial diet, and they're totally avoidable. They are totally avoidable if we transform the way that we grew and produced our food. And I want to share this statistic with you. 11 million people die every year from a bad diet. 11 million people. Now, we live in Australia, Joel, and often people get attacked by sharks. Often people get eaten alive by sharks. And we go out there and there's a frenzy. We want to find the shark. We want to destroy the shark, even though we were swimming or surfing or whatever in that environment. And it happens a couple of times a year. 11 billion people are dying every year from food-related disease, and no one's doing a thing. We're turning a blind eye to it, which is crazy. So I know a lot of people. We're in the health profession. We help a lot of people. We see a lot of chronic disease and illness out there, and we see the damage that it causes and the pressure that it causes to these families. So what I really want our listeners to think about today is, the single biggest global threat right now is chronic disease. It's going to take its toll on the economy. It already is. The strain, the money that goes into, the medical systems to provide for these people, the medications, the pharmaceuticals, it's crazy. And I want to put this in perspective. General Motors. General Motors is one of the biggest car companies on the planet. They spend more, they're one of the biggest steel companies on the planet. They spend more on healthcare than they do on steel. Like, that's crazy, it's unheard of, but this is the way it's going. Starbucks spends more on healthcare than it does on coffee beans, so we are sort of seeing the damage already, that the flow-on effects, I guess you would say, that our poor food system is now, we're now seeing that, over 4 million years, we've seen life expectancy increase, and now all of a sudden it's decreasing. We've done that. We've done that because we've changed the way that we farm. We've done that because we've changed the way that the chemicals that we use to farm, and it's getting out of control. So it's costly, it's killing millions, and it's driven by our food system. So why am I bringing up biodiversity? Why am I bringing up soil? Well, the chemical import damages human health. And when I say chemical import, I'm talking about things like your herbicides, your Roundups, your pesticides. And you know what? the workers that work in these environments are actually, working in some of the most dangerous environments on the planet. The workers that are around these chemicals, the chronic disease, they're under minimum wage, they are exploited, they don't even have health care, they're exposed to these chemicals, which is taking a risk on their health. Their life expectancy is very, very low. They've got all these hormone disruptors and carcinogenics that they're exposed to on a daily basis. But when that apple rocks up to your door, you're not thinking about all that kind of stuff. When you're ordering that burger from that fast food outlet, you're not thinking about the farmers, the workers that are giving their blood, sweat and tears, their health up just so you can have this burger at the end of the day. Like, we need to start thinking about where is our food coming from and what practices are being used to get it to our plate. So according to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, more than 90% of our plant varieties and half of our livestock varieties have been lost to farms, and we're seeing a massive impact too. Look at all the ice that's melting. Look at all the forests, the deforestation that is happening around the world. We have a very small window right now, Joel, where we can help fix this, through a food fix process. And I'm going to talk about ways that we can individually help fix a lot of this. But I'm hoping that our listeners are, really enjoying this change of topic, because as we said, Joel, this is a legacy topic. We want to be able to help our listeners, help you guys start thinking broader, start thinking more about things that really matter in life. Joel and I, we want to be role models for our kids. We want to leave this amazing legacy for our children. But what's the point of doing that if there's going to be no food to feed people in 50 years' time? What's going to happen? If we don't have soil that can maintain water, because there's a difference, guys, between soil and dirt, okay? And at the moment, we've got a lot of dirt, and dirt doesn't hold water. So when there's floods, the ground cannot absorb that water, okay? It just runs off, and that's why we're seeing a lot of crazy weather patterns right now, because of the soil that's happening, the loss of soil. So I want to share a couple of things out of this book. And it's only 1% of corn that's grown, 1%. So we get most of our food sources from about 4 different plant sources, corn, soy, and I'm forgetting the other couple, but only 1% of corn grown in America is actually consumed by humans, 1%. The rest of it goes into, food oils and animal feed. And it goes into things like your high fructose corn syrup, which is going into a lot of your soda drinks. Now, if you drink 2 soda drinks a day, your life expectancy decreases significantly. So these high fructose corn syrups are ridiculous on our health. It goes into alcohol, it goes into biodegradable plastics. And in the United States alone, 27% of cropland is only used to grow food for humans. The rest of it, 67%, is used to grow food for our cattle. So we need to start looking at, that cattle causes overpopulation. And when you have overpopulation on our lands, it causes, or it doesn't allow the land to rest. It doesn't allow there's, I don't know what the technical term is called, but I've been learning about this in my regenerative farming course. The plants aren't able to regenerate. So therefore they can't hold the energy and that the sunlight produces. Fallow. Thanks, Joel. So, we need to start using cattle as a tool to regenerate the soil. And it can be done. And all this, guys, is reversible. Joel, I don't know if you want to come in here. I've been blabbering on quite a bit, but it's such a massive topic, and we could spend a whole month, like 4 or 5 different podcasts talking about this stuff. But I wanted to give that little bit of a background into it before I really dig into the soil and how we can make a difference as individuals.
Yeah, well, it's been great information, and I think this is. I'm just thinking how this podcast will probably blow up, and because it's a touchy subject. There's a lot of people out there that argue either way, and you know what I mean. Like the food companies. Like I was in the food industry. I owned supermarkets, and there was a time not that long ago when all the fruits and vegetables went in and out of season. You know what I mean? So like we would not get green grapes all year round. We would definitely not get watermelon all year round. We would not get certain types of apples, oranges at any, and what I saw was like more fruit and veg coming in more often to the point where it's just like all year round now. You can nearly get everything all year round. And it started to look more like plastic, really. Like it's like there was a certain, it had to be this dimension. And I know for sure some of the bigger chain stores, they have size and quality parameters. So if, the apple falls outside this look, it doesn't get brought in. Now, often I remember as kids, like we had fruit trees and everything like that. Like the best looking fruit wasn't always the tastiest. It was sometimes the stuff that was like more ripe and probably had a few marks on it and everything like that. Well, you don't get that in the supermarkets anymore. So where this has all come from is profit. How do we get more profit and get more like commercialized, like the commercialization of farms, and really just wringing every single dollar out of the farmers? Because like the food companies, the supermarkets, for the most part, are really powerful. So they actually force farmers to get to a point by squeezing them where they can't even risk not putting a field of, like, say, corn in, where, you used to rotate your crops. Like one of the things in farming, we got farms in our family, we had to rotate the crops because one crop took a certain nutrient out and another crop would put it back in. So I used to wonder why, and I used to ask the old farmers, like these guys are like 70, 80 years old, like it's not new stuff. Hey, like if we feed the cows this, why do you every so often put this other one in? He said, if we don't put that other one in, then we won't have anything. We'll have a dust bowl because the nitrogen's getting taken out. So like they would do lucerne one time and then they'd put oats in another time and whatever. Like I don't remember that part, but I remember the story. And, so it's where the supermarkets and, it's come down to the almighty dollar. So like the fact that, the chronic disease is costing so much money, that doesn't like surprise me at all. I see it all the time. And, what the funny thing is, and why I'm so happy you're talking about soil, and I don't know if you've even cottoned onto this, you probably have, but the answer to this is whole foods. But if there's no soil, there's not going to be any whole foods either. You know what I mean? And when they want to buy the corn, like corn coming to us, whether, there's some diets that say corn's bad for you, some say it's good. I actually don't care. It's better than, is it bad compared to what? Is it bad compared to drinking Coke? Probably not. So just eat corn. If you're going to drink Coke, eat corn. Like but there's no money in it. There's no value add to it. If they don't turn it into something else, they can't charge all this extra money and make it go further and put all this other dirty stuff that's in there. So like, it just brings me back to the Fed Up documentary that I saw, and that was disgusting to see what they're pumping into our kids over in America. But one good thing is, and once again, I'm going to fire up the conspiracy theory people that don't like the Disney company, but I can tell you that the Epcot Center is paying a lot of money to research how to create whole foods without soil. They're actually out there looking. So whether there's bad everywhere else, there's good people there doing the research, trying to find ways to fix this. And, like I've written here, like, as well, like, if the government and everything really cared, they'd stop people from smoking. They would ban smoking. That, for me, the day they ban smoking is the day I know they actually care about us, because they know that's bad for us. They know 100% that it causes cancer, just like they know all like Roundup and all these other things are carcinogenic. I don't need to go into the list, but if you do your research, there's a lot of stuff they're allowing near us and in our food and everything like that that isn't good for us. And I guess as an argument, you can go the other way and say, well, would we have the amount of food to feed us? I don't know that answer. I just know that if I can get away from that stuff, I do. There's ways to get around it. You can wash it in a certain way or whatever. And, but they would quit. They'd stop you from smoking, honestly. But there's tax that comes in. And I know from owning a store, I used to sell it and it was a big, it made me feel incongruent because I wanted to help the world. And that's one of the reasons why I stepped out, because I looked at my store and I was like, 80% of the stuff that they make that we need to sell just to stay afloat is absolute crap. So there's that. And so what are we going to do? Well, we need to listen to podcasts like this, educate yourself. Like Christine is becoming an expert in this because she cares about it. And I suggest that you don't take what we're saying for granted. Do your own research and come up with your own, ideas. Like there's arguments that like we can see that there's climate change. There's enough science and anecdotal evidence on either side, for my mind, to see that humans are speeding it up. And it may have been happening anyway. If you look back far enough into the ice caps and see what's happened in the past, we're due for a warming now. So, and what happens when a warming happens right before it is there's a lot of CO2, and I'm going to get all the science part wrong, comes into the air. But that's Mother Nature trying to right itself. The problem is that we are not helping slow things down. So it may have happened before. It may happen again. Realistically, most of the people that carry on like pelicans aren't scientists. So I look to the scientists, and I've seen documentaries that show it either way. Ultimately, whether we're doing it or not, it's happening. And I honestly think, like, in giving it a bit of an opinion piece before I turn it back over to you, Christine, is like, it's either right, we're either doing it or we're not. We're either like causing it to be faster or we're not. But wouldn't you rather to do something about it just in case we are? Because if we're not, it's not going to matter. But if we are, and we go down and go, oh, well, and we're wrong, if we're wrong about it, us speeding it up, and we do something about it, that's still an upside. But if we don't do anything and we're wrong and we are speeding it up, that's catastrophic. That's like, so the worst case scenario in being interested in this stuff and doing something about it is that we have a better planet. Wouldn't you want to have a cleaner planet anyway? So we might as well just, like, I'm all for it. So Christine, I know you can take some points from that and expand on it, but I know you got tons to share. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's such an important point. And I remember about 25, 26 years ago when I was at school, I was learning about all this. This was an issue back then. And I haven't seen a lot in the documentaries, the books that I'm reading today. I haven't seen a lot of positive change that's been made, that's made an impact, a positive impact on reversing some of these things. And that's in, 25, 26 years. So
hang on, Christine, hang on. You were learning about this stuff when you were like 4 years old, like 25 years ago.
You're very kind. You're very kind. I am pushing 40. So, and I'm proud of it. But I was learning about this stuff and I was interested in this stuff way back then, and I don't know why I didn't do anything with it back then, but, I was doing, what do you call it back then? Like placement, when you're at high school and you get to do all the placements and things. That's when I started really learning about this and found it really, really fascinating. But why is soil erosion such a, plays such a factor? Well, listen to this. And this is just in the US alone, but $44 billion a year, that's the cost of, soil erosion from industrial agriculture. And we lose almost 2 billion tons of topsoil a year in America alone. So that's about 200,000 tons every hour of topsoil gone. And you're probably thinking, but who cares about the topsoil? Well, the topsoil has living organisms in it that are crucial for the human race, for the survival of our race. And if we lose that, we're facing extinction, guys. And, you know, some of us out there probably think, well, we're just the next animals that have to go through extinction. And yes, we are. We will meet our day where the human race will probably be extinct. But we're talking 60 years, guys. 60 years, we may completely have lost all topsoil. And if there's no topsoil, there's no food. If there's no food, there's no people. And yes, there's innovations coming through. Like we're now growing food with using just water, you know, without the soil and things like that through aquaponics and things like that. So there are innovations coming, but is it going to be enough to feed the population? Is it going to be enough to feed the people for what we need? And at the moment, yes, we're telling people to eat more whole foods, eat more plants, but the reality of it is there isn't enough plants to feed the entire population. You know, so we need to start looking at our farms and going, okay, well, let's stop producing so much of this so that we can create the land and rejuvenate the soil so that we can create more plants at a higher quality that are less detrimental to our health, where we don't need the herbicides and the pesticides, you know. And guys, it's not that hard. You know, we are seeing farmers year after year within 2 to 5 years turning these farms into regenerative farms where they're not having to use irrigation, because that's another massive issue. Watering, the water that's needed. Imagine just being able to, rely on natural rainfall rather than having to use irrigation, you know, the water out of our dams and our lakes and rivers. To most of our water is going to the cattle, which is causing a lot of the damage to the soil, you know, to the planet. So we want to make sure that we keep that topsoil, because dirt is lifeless. It is absolutely, dirt is dead. It's no good. You can't grow fruits and vegetables in dirt, you know, and that's why we're seeing this massive, this massive push of herbicides and pesticides. So we want to make sure that we've got those microorganisms, you know, the fungi, the worms, they're all needed to extract the nutrients from the soil to feed the plants. It's an ecosystem, guys. And if one part of this ecosystem is damaged or gone, we're screwed. Okay, we are absolutely screwed. So we want to make sure that we are absolutely protecting our soil. And, you know, there's so many ways to do that. But I spoke about the irrigation of the crops, but, you know, if we just have dirt, when there's a lot of rainfall, the ground can't absorb that water. So we're actually now seeing the runoff then, the water runs off, takes all the herbicides, the pesticides, the Roundups and everything, that enters our water systems where we get our drinking water from. And now all those chemicals, we're exposed to that again. So of course we're seeing an increase in disease, discomfort, chronic illnesses and things like that. So we want to make sure that when it's raining, we're capturing that and we're using that rain in the best possible way. We want to make sure that we are drawing down the carbon from the atmosphere, you know, to reduce that climate change. And we want to make sure that we're limiting the impact of droughts and floods. And the way to do that is by taking care and maintaining our soil levels. So it's going to be a big process. It's going to be a long process, but it's not impossible. But you know what? It does start with us. You know, it starts with us. Even food waste. You know, we're wasting 40% of our food. We're wasting it in the home. We're wasting it in the field. We're wasting it in transportation. We're wasting it in restaurants. We're wasting it in supermarkets. And it goes into landfill. And that rotting of food in the landfill, it produces toxic methane, which then heats up the climate. And food waste, it's the third biggest emitter of greenhouse gas on the planet. Let that sink in for a moment. Like, that's crazy to think about, the food waste. No, you're not thinking about that when you're throwing your scraps in the bin, are you? But that's actually contributing to global warming. You know, by having a compost heap out the back where you're taking that compost and reproducing it into your soil at home, where you're growing your own fruits and veggies in your backyard, that's one way to help reduce some of this. But also, how can you reduce the waste in the first time? How can you stop overbuying? How can you stop getting rid of a lot of the fruits and veggies by reusing them in stocks and soups, and maybe blending some of the like kale, for instance, in our house, if it's starting to wilt, we blend it and we put it in ice cubes, and we can then use those ice cubes to go into our smoothies. You know, so little simple things like that to be able to reduce. And I'm really embarrassed to say, like, our family alone, like the amount of waste that we were creating before I knew all this and the damage that food waste causes, I'd hate to show you what we were wasting. It was ridiculous. But just making some key little changes in your house, because we can't rely on government to come in with restrictions and with these big policies. It starts with us. We're going to start at the ground roots level, and that's us as individuals. We need to start going, how can I as an individual leave this planet in a better place? What can I do that's going to make a difference? And, you know, if we want our kids to live a long life, like a life free from disease and that's rich in vitality and health, then we've got this small opportunity right now where we can start making a difference. Because kids, like our children, are the first generation that are going to start living less and less. They're actually going to start dying at younger ages than us. We're the longest living generation, and now we're starting to see the impact of what we've created through our food system. So we need a new generation of farmers. We really do. And, you know, even my husband and I are looking to get into regenerative farming so that we can start making a difference, so that there's individuals out there that are putting one foot behind the other in an attempt to save our soil. And it's so important. And imagine if we had an army of individuals out there that are prepared to invest their own resources into turning this problem around. And if we can do that, and there's already a movement happening, there really is, but it's not happening fast enough. And that's why one of the reasons why we're doing these legacy calls on this podcast is to get you guys to think about this stuff. You know, yes, there's a lot of charities out there. Yes, there's a lot of ways that you can make a difference. But if there's no human race, you know, to make a difference too, we're kind of screwed. So it all comes back to the soil and how we farm, and, you know, as I said, going from the farm to our fork. So I just want to, sorry, Joel.
For it. Yeah. So just for the listeners, like, so because I'm learning as we go right now as well. And you say that you've made a pretty big difference. Like, so let's just talk bin size. Like, so if you're listening in Australia, you know what a wheelie bin is. So they get picked up every week, and a lot of the time they're quite full to overflowing. I see a lot, like I do the 75 hard, I'm out, and I see bin time, and I'm like, wow. And then I walk past a few, and I'm like, holy crap. That's like, what have they been doing there? Like, so I get the whole, it's creating like mess and, you know, landfill and everything like that. So what are your top 3 things that people that are listening to this right now can do to even make an impact on having more soil? And can you give me an idea of, like, your bins, you know, have probably got less waste in, like, is it half? Is it like 10% difference? Is it like, what's actually changed for you? And what would your top 3 suggestions to just a regular mum and dad listener that isn't going to go into politics, isn't going to own a big, like, company that's going to change us? What can they do to get this going? And then maybe even share, where can they find some more information out about this? Like, where do they start learning about this?
Yeah, and such empowering questions to ask, Joel. And, you know, in our household, I'd like to say that we've definitely halved our wastage, you know. But, you know, one thing to do, and it comes back to that seasonal eating as well, is look for local farmers, shop at your local farmers market, eat seasonally, you know. The second thing is start your own home garden. It's not that difficult. You know, you might start with herbs, and then you might go to lettuces and tomatoes and things like that. But that's one key thing. And you know, even when you do buy your lettuces and, you know, anything with a root system, I always buy things with a root system because I can use that and then go and replant it. So I've got a couple of lettuces, like we used all ours in our garden, so I had to buy some more. And what I did was I just chopped the bottom off, I went and planted it, and now we've got 4 or 5 different lettuces regrowing in our garden because we use those. Same with shallots. You know, most of the time shallots still have the root system. So buy things that, you know, that do have that root system on, but buy locally, buy seasonally. You know, the stuff that we get from our local organic suppliers here lasts so much longer than the stuff that we get from the supermarket. The flavor is better. Another thing to do is, you know, really like reuse, or don't overbuy. Like, it's okay if you have to go to the shop twice a week instead of once a week, you know, because what I'm finding, Joel, is a lot of families out there are shopping once a week and they're not consuming everything that they're buying in that week. And then by the end of the week, it's wilting, it's getting old, you know, the carrots are bendy, you know, all that kind of stuff. So like, don't be afraid to maybe do one big shop for your, you know, for your sauces and things like that. But with your whole foods, maybe you get it delivered, you know, every, I don't know, twice a week or something like that. Or if you buy organically, it's going to last longer anyway. So, you know, in regards to education, you know, I'm going to hold the book up for those that see this on YouTube, Food Fix. This is an incredible book. There are so many Facebook groups out there. You know, I'm doing a course at the moment through, I can't even think of the name of the organization, but it's all about regenerative farming. You know, yesterday we learned about the tools and how to use cattle as a tool. Like even something as simple, Joel, as having chickens on your farm and then planting macadamia trees. So the macadamia trees actually provide a protection shield from predators coming to attack those chickens and things. But it's an ecosystem. So the waste from the chickens goes back into the macadamia trees. You can sell the macadamias as, you know, as profit, but it's this whole ecosystem and knowing, you know, what, even down to what grasses to plant at what time of year, so that you've got grass feed for your cattle, and you can move your cattle around from paddock to paddock so that they can, you can rest the paddocks properly, so that they're absorbing the energy from the atmosphere, they're absorbing the energy from the sun, they're giving the soil that time to rejuvenate, to replenish. You know, we've got to start thinking about this kind of stuff. We can't just leave it to the government. We can't just leave it, like I put my head in the sand for so long, Joel, thinking someone else will deal with this problem. But we can't think like that anymore. We have to start going, what can I do as an individual? And I really feel like you just going and joining groups, Facebook groups around this, like go and Google soil, go and Google regenerative farming, go and Google the Food Fix, even Dr. Hyman, you know, people that are out there that are making, like there's some incredible companies out there, and I'm not going to mention them, you can get them from this book, but there's some amazing companies out there that are forward thinking, that are already, you know, pumping so many resources and innovation into this area. But we can't just sit back and do nothing as an individual, because we've got this small window of opportunity, and if we miss it, we are screwed as a human race. Our kids' future depends on what we do today, not next week, not next month. We need to start individually turning up differently today. What are we wasting? How are we preparing our food? Where is it coming from? Just eating seasonally alone is going to make a difference. We as consumers, what we buy, that whole supply and demand, we've got the power. We really do have the power. So if we start eating less from the supermarkets and more from our farmers, more from our organic suppliers, that puts pressure on the supermarkets. And we've already seen it a little bit where, you know, they've got sections in there now called the odd bunch. You know, all the fruit. I often shop in the odd bunch section. I don't give a shit what my bloody apples or my zucchinis look like. That's one big part of the problem, which Joel spoke about before, is having our fruits and veggies, having them have to look a certain way. You know, the amount of bananas that I've heard gets wasted just because they're not the right shape, they're not the right length, is ridiculous. You know, those bananas, they get thrown out to landfill. They don't even get given to the homeless. Like, that's crazy. You know, so we want to make sure that we are starting to shop and support the local farmers. Where are you getting your meat from? You know, is it chemical free? Is it hormone free? Is it antibiotic free? Because that's a whole nother issue, Joel, is those antibiotics going into our system and making us resistant to antibiotics then. So when we get sick and the pharmaceuticals are sending us antibiotics to take, we become immune to it and it doesn't help. You know, so it's everything comes back to the way that we grow our food, the way that we transport it, the way that we eat it, the way that we prepare it. It's this crazy cycle, mate.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, the reason why I don't eat meat is because I know of the chemicals that are in there. Like, straight up, like, it's not like, after that I've done more research and I've formed my own opinions, and I don't actually care what anyone else does, to be honest. In that regard, like, I'm not judging anyone if they eat a steak. I don't mind. Here's the thing though, I know what's in it and it's not awesome. And I know how long it can be cryovac for, and I know how long it's been around before it even gets to us. So I'm not really that happy with it. And, you know, a cool thing, like, I love attaching things back to people's pockets. You know, Christine, like, I don't know if you're already on the smaller size bin, but when you talk rates, I know because of the tenants that I have, you know, how much they charge you for each bin. So if you weren't getting it picked up all the time, or maybe you even had so little that you could actually do a run yourself, you could actually save, like, literally thousands of dollars on your rates from just even garbage collection. So, like, there's an incentive there to do it. And then you added in that all the fruit and vegetables that we waste because we shop once a week, and I get it. It's convenient to just do it once a week, and maybe you get it delivered more often, like you said. But that's going to save you money too. So there's two ways you can save money. And I love what you said, because I wrote it down too. Vote with your wallet. And if you don't think, you probably think, oh, Joel, Christine, you're in La La Land. What can one person's wallet do to a big conglomerate, like multinational company? Well, here's the thing. McDonald's has salads. It had shit. It doesn't want to give you salads. It makes more money on the crap, but they have salads because they were losing business to other companies that were more health conscious. They have coffee in there. They don't really want to put coffee in there, but they were losing money to coffee shops. Think about it. McDonald's, biggest fast food chain on the planet, and it's pivoted because there is a more healthy like consciousness happening right now. People want to be more green. They want to eat more healthy foods. Where, like, common sense is starting to kick in. Not for everyone, but it's just it is like in it. You know, when I made my big health change for the way we ate in our family, I was just like, I didn't do it all cold turkey. I went, wow, what is 100% good for us? There's no, like, it doesn't matter what study's done. Well, fruits and vegetables. Okay, so we'll eat more of that. What have we decided? Yeah, there's lots of chemicals in meat. Is there any doubt about that? No, there isn't. All right, so let's eat way less of that. What about dairy? Well, I'm hearing conflicting reports here. What do we do? All right, well, let's just trim it back a bit and do our research and then make our decision. And I've done that with eggs. I've done it with all the different things that I've decided to eat or not eat. And, you know, but just like go for the common sense stuff first. Like, you know, everyone knows eating green vegetables is good for you. Everyone knows drinking high quality water is great for you. It's common sense to know that less waste is good for the planet. It's common sense to know, like, you don't need to know that, you don't need to be a scientist to know that when you've only got dirt and the wind comes up, you don't have dirt anymore. It goes onto the neighbor's car or something like that. So if it's soil and wet and moist and got all the nutrients in it, you know it's good for you. Like my mum, when she's building a veggie garden, doesn't go and get 10 cubic meters of dirt. She goes and gets soil, and then she goes to Bunnings and gets the soil, like the compost stuff and like whatever she does, like to make the best fruits and veggies on the planet that, you know, and she has found ways. That's the other thing I was talking to Christine off air about yesterday. Like she has found a way to use chili and some, I don't know, water and something like pineapple juice or something to use that as a homemade pesticide that doesn't hurt the bugs, doesn't hurt the plants, doesn't hurt you when you have it later. And, you know, by the time you wash the chili off, it's not like you've got a marinated chili dish every time. It's like, it's just really great. And I can tell you, one of the reasons why I got into my health and wellness business was because I started juicing and I bought all this stuff from a large supermarket. I had a big bag of it, like a couple of bags of it. And then we went down and Mum said, "Oh, what have you guys been doing?" I said, "Oh, we went shopping and we got this, this, and this." She goes, "I've got a garden full of it. What are you doing?" So she went down, she got it all. I'm like, oh my God. And I brought it back. So I had equal amounts in equal bags, right? And we did an experiment. We did a juicing. We juiced all the stuff in this bag from the large conglomerate like supermarket. And it made like, let's just say a liter of juice. When we juiced Mum's, it made like 3 to 4 times as much juice. It was crazy. It was so, and it tasted better. The other one tasted like almost rotting by comparison to what Mum had. Like it was, because it is. I hate to tell you, it's crap. There's no nutrients in it either. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because that's a whole nother podcast. But we're just sharing personal experience and how you can save money by doing this. You can make it actually make sense in your household budget. Like if you could save a couple of $1,000s a year in just garbage disposal, like what would that do for you in the long run? What could you invest that in? Like, you know what I mean? And I know everyone's not going to get a farm. And if you live in America, no matter where you are, you live in Australia, there's plenty of options. I've seen people that have balconies in apartment buildings that produce enough fruits and vegetables for them to really like support themselves in there. Like I know Mum hasn't got a tremendously massive, veggie garden, but she can support herself and a lot of the family and the neighbors just from, you know, putting some kale in, just putting some stuff in. And like, that's well and truly within the size of it could be a below average backyard, you know, just a balcony or something, you know? So yeah, get amongst it. Anyway, Christine, that's my ramble. Like you're the host today.
I love that. And I love that your mum, she's just one of thousands that are doing their part in regards to finding natural ways to grow these fruits and veggies. And that's unbelievable to compare those two different juicing bags as well, mate. Like that's amazing. Okay, so what can you do to join the movement? What can you do? This is what Dr. Hyman recommends that we do to help. And I'm going to give you a website that you can go to learn more as well. But he's saying eat at restaurants that serve organic, farm to table, you know, regenerative food. Now, some people are saying, well, let's just stop eating the meat. Okay, but we actually do need the cattle. They are part of the tool. They're part of the solution. So it's not as easy as just saying stop eating meat. And there is a need to eat meat as well. And what I'm finding is, because I went down the whole vegan path for a while, but from the research that I've done is just eating those meat-free burgers now that are coming out, that's actually worse for the planet than eating the meat. Okay, so even some of those practices where we think we're doing a good thing by not eating the meat, now we're going to eat this new patty that they've created that tastes just like meat. When you look at how they've actually made that, processed that, the water that's used in it and everything, it can actually be more detrimental to the environment. And it's the same with things like, look at all the alternative milks that are coming out now. You know, the dairy the dairy industry is taking a big hit because people are turning to more alternative milks, dairy-free milks. But if you look at the amount of water that it takes to grow almonds, for instance, like that's another problem on itself, you know. And in our household, I drink a lot of almond milk, you know. But then when I research, I'm like, oh no, now I'm taking a crucial resource, you know, water. So the more that you read into it, the more that you go, oh my gosh, like this is just like, it's bombarding, it's overwhelming, it saddens me. But you know what? It starts with education. And if you can support, like as Joel said, not all of us are going to go out there and start a farm, you know, but what we can do is support the people that have done it. We can start supporting those that are moving in the right direction. So support the restaurants that are organic, support the restaurants and the farms and the farmers markets that are using these regenerative practices where they are maintaining and you know, growing and producing food from soil. I don't know if you know this, Joel, but a handful of soil has more microbes in it than all the humans that have ever lived on the planet. Like, it's so hard to get your head around that. Like, one handful of soil, more microbes than all the humans that have ever lived on the planet. Like, that's insane, guys. That alone, that statement alone should tell you how important soil is. So soil's the food web, and it's the life cycle of Earth. You know, we need it. So what else can you do? You've got to start looking at food labels. You've got to start reading food labels, guys. This is so important. We want to be eating foods and consuming foods that are humane, that are using humane practices, that are not exposing people, workers, to ridiculous herbicides, pesticides, to all these health concerns. You can support innovation and policies for food and agricultural practices that are helping to reverse climate change. If you have a look, do a bit of research, there are some big companies that have been a massive, you know, they're starting to realize their impact. And some of these big companies, like, I'm just going to throw Nestle out there, as bad as Nestle's practices have been in the past, they are one of the big companies that are investing in regenerative farming. They are starting to change their processes, how they, what foods they use, where it's coming from, and things like that. So there are some big companies out there that are moving in the right direction. So let's start supporting them. Let's start being part of this movement through the choices that we individually make. Start supporting businesses that draw down carbon, you know, rather than the ones that are releasing it, you know, and learn from groups like LandLink and Landcore and Regeneration International. These are some of the companies where you can go and learn more and how to support businesses that are actually, you know, finding ways of keep reducing the carbon, but also keeping it so that we can, you know, it's that energy management system. So as I spoke before, you know, reducing your own food waste, something as simple as this, Joel, using a bit of paper, like a simple piece of paper infused with a few little herbs, will actually keep your produce fresher for longer, 3 to 4 times longer. So I've noticed now when we order our organic fruits and veggies, on our watermelon, they've got brown paper over it now, and over our rock melon and everything. So, and it's making it last so much longer. It's not Glad wrap, you know, like, get rid of the Glad wrap, guys. Let's start using more sustainable practices in our home. And the beauty of that is you're going to have watermelon that's lasting 3 to 4 times longer, or your rock melons and things like that. The other thing is a compost pile. Starting a compost pile in your own backyard is an incredible way to, you know, reuse those food scraps. And as I said before, you can use food scraps for so many things. The food scraps can go into your blender as part of your smoothie, you know, and most of the parts that we're discarding is where the most nutrition is stored in those fruits and vegetables anyway. So why are we throwing out an apple core when we could be using that apple core in a smoothie? Whack it in your blender, it's going to get pulverized down anyway, and you're going to get the, you know, all the beautiful nutrients that are stored in the seeds, that's stored in the core, that's stored in the skin. Like, that's another thing. Most of the nutrients in an apple, 95% of its goodness is in the skin. So when you're peeling that apple for your kid, you're missing out on the fiber, you're missing out on a lot of those micronutrients that are part of that ecosystem that we need in our bodies, you know. So just little things like that, learning how to use it, and starting with our own backyard, starting with our own households, is massive. So where can you go? I want to give you this website. So anyone that wants to be part of this movement, that wants to start making changes, there is a website, and it's www.foodrxcampaign.org. If you go there, check it out, or you can go to the other website, which is foodfixbook.com. You can learn more about this book and and some of the solutions, the innovations that are occurring out there. But guys, just start with one. Start with one positive change. If we can all do that, and if we can start looking at our own personal choices that we're making in the supermarkets, like, come on, let's support the little guy. Let's start supporting. And when we start supporting the little guy, when we start supporting local, the costs will come down. They will. I guarantee it. So it's all about that supply and demand. And if we demand more freshness, if we demand better practices, if we demand safer food, then eventually the prices will come down and it will be more attainable for more people.
Absolutely. Vote with your wallet. That's how we've got where we are, because we've been voting with our wallet. You know, if it's not profitable, they won't do it. They'll change. They'll make something else happen. And I get the whole argument that, you know, people say organic food's more expensive. You know, my take on that is it really? Like, is it really? Especially when hopefully most of the time it's fresher, so that means it's going to last longer. And if you use some of the practices Christine just said, it's definitely going to last longer. It's healthier for you. Hasn't got all the chemicals on it. So I actually forward think enough to think, well, you know what? You know what's expensive? Healthcare, cancer treatment. And heaven forbid I ever get it. But, you know, like, or any one of our listeners gets it, but that's expensive too. So, you know, would you rather pay the money now and eat healthier and, you know, make better choices? And, you know, look, let's just say something that, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a random thing. Like, let's just say sunflower oil. Well, you know, I picked a good one, didn't I? It wasn't that I was trying to think of one that was bad. It was like I had so many I could have picked. But sunflower oil is bad for you, because it is. Let's be real. It would not be on the store shelves if people weren't buying it. You know, and I know for myself, I tried at one stage, I was looking at putting, you know, organic local stuff in my shop, and the council wouldn't let me. I was getting in trouble for, like, avoiding the Sydney market and, you know, the registered marketers, because just in case, you know, and I could see why they thought they were doing the right thing, but it was like, what was to, like, if the farmer wasn't certified, you know, enough, they couldn't promise that there wasn't like the wrong stuff getting put on. How do you know just because it was a local guy that he wasn't making worse stuff or putting effluent on his stuff? Which, let's be real, it's the circle of life. It's not the worst. Wash your stuff, guys. You probably got worse stuff on your fruit and veggie anyway. But I'm just saying, like, when we tried to actively do that and get local meat and local stuff, the council was creating a certification process for those guys. And, you know, maybe some of them have done it now, but just at the time I was looking at it, and it was so, like, vicious, it was so expensive that these farmers couldn't justify doing it. These are people, you know, that, you know, and when you're in an official store, you got to play by the rules, and the rules were twisted towards the food companies. You know, I don't know about you, Christine, and I'll leave it at this. I'll let you close it out after this. I think in the next 20 years, the way we treat tobacco companies is how we're going to treat the food companies. I think that they're the next ones that are going to get exposed for the people that are, you know, preying on us and making us sick and profiting from it, because it's easy for them to do. And they've got so much power. And the way we're going to shut all those companies down is to vote with our wallet. Because if we don't pay them, they don't have the money to create this crap for us. And, you know, it's horrible. So yeah, that's me. I'll pass it over to you and bring us home.
You raise a really good point there, mate. And it's not a matter of shutting down these big companies, because they actually have the distribution, the resources to be able to switch it. You know, it's about putting pressure on them and demanding they change their practices and what they put on our shelves, you know. And this is a whole nother topic, Joel, but there's, like, we live in Australia and there's food getting on our shelves that's banned in other countries because of the health risks that these foods cause. Why the heck is our government letting them in? I have no idea. You know, I'm getting emotional just even thinking about it. It's ridiculous, but it's a money-making game. But I want to close with, you know, conclusion out of this book, and what Dr. Hyman says. And it's that, you know, when I started reading this book, and the more that I learn about this stuff, Joel, I felt exactly what Dr. Hyman says at the start of this book. It's like we're standing on a beach on a beautiful day and everyone else is there sunbaking and enjoying the sun. And us that know more, we're standing looking at the ocean at this massive tsunami coming. You know, the more that you know, the more that you understand what's going on, and you just think, wow. But when he concludes, and I feel exactly the same way now, you know, we do have a sense of hope. We do have a better understanding, and that's where it starts. Understanding the problems and challenges that we're set with actually, you know, forces a foundation for innovation and solutions. So the more that you educate, the more that we educate ourselves on this, the more innovation that's going to come. So it's the beginning of reimagining a food system that provides real, whole, nutrient-dense food across the globe that addresses hunger and obesity. A food system that saves trillions of wasted dollars every year that could be redirected to solving our most intractable problems of disease, poverty, violence, lack of education, and social injustice. And that's something that I didn't go into either. These, what they call food banks. You know, in some places in America, you have to drive at least 45, they're called food deserts, where, you know, you're in suburbia, but you have to drive at least 45 minutes to get an apple, to get a carrot, because what they've done is they've set up these food deserts that are flooded with big food companies, the big food chains, the drive-throughs, and the 24 hours, like, mini marts that have, they don't stock any fruits and vegetables in them. It's all packaged food. So that alone, when you live in an environment like that, that has flow-on detrimental effects to crime rates, to mental health, to chronic disease, to life expectancy, to the way people are just showing up as a human being. So, you know, poverty and violence and all that kind of stuff, lack of education. So we want a food system that restores ecosystems, that builds soil, that protects our scarce water resources, that reduces pollution, increases biodiversity, and reverses climate change. That's the food system that I'm hoping that we can create in this small window of opportunity that we've got right now. And I'm sure you guys after this podcast are feeling the same way, and I hope that you do. And, you know, we need to start having a food system that is redemptive rather than rapacious. We need to start looking at what each individual person, what we are doing, what processes and practices are we teaching our kids, how are we educating them. And honestly, if you are a mum, it's the mums in the household that I really feel we have the most power, because we are the ones that are buying the food. We're putting things in our trolleys. We're the ones that are preparing the food, putting the food in our cupboards, in our kids' lunch boxes. So if you're a mum out there, don't underestimate the power that you have in making these positive changes towards a better world. You know, it starts with us, and we can't put our head in the sand anymore and leave it to other people. We must be the change we want to see, and I truly believe that. So that's it, mate. That's it for another podcast. I forgot that you handed it over to me to close. So guys, honestly, this is such, like, we could go on as I said, for weeks talking about this, but this is just to give you a bit of a taster into this topic, to get you thinking differently about what's turning up on your plate. And if you want to know more, I've given you a few websites. You can Google it. You can send us questions. If you love this topic and you want us to bring it up down the track, we can dive deeper into the little side topics that are part of this and the ecosystem. But I just want to say, if you're listening to this and you do nothing, then that's on you. But if you're listening to this podcast and you decide to make some positive changes, then we've started that ripple effect. And through communication and education and you sharing this information with the people that you love and care about, that's how we can make greater change within the world. So thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next podcast.
Damn. Yeah.